let's start with the kind of just a quick little story on how the smokestack design of all the ships happened, because it is super iconic, but not everyone didn't really believe it at first, huh?
Well, it was just one of those things, and anything that is new and different, always think, there's always naysayers and so forth. And the this story started for me long before I designed the funnel, actually. I was on board my first cruise with the Carnival, and Ted Harrison, the founder and owner of Carnival Cruise Lines, invited me to go because I was working for another architect at the time, Morris Lapidus, but I was the project manager of converting what was the Queen Anna Maria into Carnival's second ship, the Carnival. When I say convert, it was a seat of your pants project that we did. I hired people, had them on board. I worked with the tools myself, and anyway, we got this what was a rusty, saggy, stinky old passenger ship, and we converted it into the Carnival, which was a extremely successful ship for Carnival, and paved the way for the next and the next, and so on and so on. So anyway, one night after dinner, actually, I was walking on the upper deck with Ted Harrison, and we were just, talking, and we came to a point on the deck near the funnel, and we both leaned against the railing, and we were both looking up at the funnel, and finally he said to me, he said, the funnel is not just a hallmark of the cruise line, but it has to be functional. Function being that, we're seeing the smoke coming out of it, and the smoke is not some benign soot that flies away. It is, in fact, condensate of fuel oil that has been burned. And smoke falls onto the deck, it builds up, and of course you've got tar on the deck essentially that has to be cleaned, and it's a real pain in the ass if the funnel isn't designed in a way to eliminate the smoke hitting the deck. So put that in my pocket, and a couple of years later, when we were planning Carnival's fourth ship, but first new building, the Tropical, we were working with a shipyard in Japan, Kawasaki Heavy Industries, who had done the work on creating Carnival's third ship, the TSS Festival. Anyway, so this was our first experience. I had no experience with new buildings. I had some experience with working with the shipyard in Japan. And we were producing a specification, myself, the naval architects, the shipyard, and the people from Carnival Cruise Lines. Anyway, Ted came from a ship-owning family and had a real appreciation for the icons of shipping. And he was very concerned about the funnel because he wanted something that was distinctive. It said Carnival Cruise Lines, was functional, and would be, something that people could easily identify and, respond to. So the naval architects had submitted several designs to him, none of which he liked. And so one day he asked me, he said, "Joe, why don't you take a shot at designing this funnel?" So I said, "Sure, why not?" And so at some point in the meetings in Kobe, the discussion went into the technical aspects of the engine room and what type of engines and so forth and so on. So I really had very little to contribute to that conversation. So I began thinking about the request that Ted had made about designing a funnel. And then I fell back and remembered our conversation on the Carnival. So I began thinking and, working with my sketch. By the way, Ted tried to sketch something for me when he asked me, but it was a series of squiggle lines that meant nothing. So anyway, but, my job was to create something. And so I began thinking about it. And I began thinking of another sort of love or interest in my life, aircraft. And I was thinking about how a plane flies. It flies by virtue of what they call lift, where an airfoil shape moves through the wind, and by curving the top surface and having the bottom surface flat, it creates a difference in velocity of the wind going over this thing, and creates actually a vacuum on top of the wing, and that's what lifts a plane. So I thought maybe this principle could be adapted to the funnel. My thinking is the funnel's moving through the air. Rather than the smoke coming out the top, let's eject it from the sides, create an airfoil shaped wing on top of it, and see what that does.
Yeah.
Okay, so sounded good to me.
Mm-hmm.
Came back to Miami, and Ted Harrison was going to have a birthday party, and they invited me to go to it. And I thought, okay, I'm going to make a model of my idea for a funnel and bring it to him. As a matter of fact, where's that model? Huh. It's usually sitting right over there. I was going to show it to you, but I don't see it anymore. It sailed away, apparently, without my knowledge. Anyway, so I made a model about, I don't know, this tall, 8 inches tall, made it out of wood, carved it, and created the winged funnel that you see today, and painted it in the Carnival's livery, adapted to this shape, and gave it to Ted at his birthday party, and he loved it. He thought that was just the greatest thing, and we put it into the specifications for the shipyard to bid on it, to make it part of the contract for building the ship. And so lo and behold, the contract didn't go to the Japanese. It went to a shipyard in Denmark, Aalborg Verft. And so my funnel was in, and the shipyard finally got the contract, and they went to Ted afterwards and said, look, you've got this funnel that's been designed. It's not going to work. It's very expensive. And we would like to give you a credit to put on, a real naval architect designed funnel that'll work perfectly. So they proposed just a very tall, straight funnel, with a little splay to it, with smoke coming out. And Ted was a businessman, and the Carnival was, not a financial powerhouse at that moment. So it was tempting to accept that offer. But Ted really loved it. And he said, okay, well, I'll consider it. But the proof of the pudding will be a test, a wind tunnel test. And so that's what we did. We went to a lab in Copenhagen. They built a model of the ship, which was, I'm going to say, about 4 feet long. And a very accurate model. And they created an accurate funnel on it, and in the right shape. And they had pipes coming out of it as the exhaust would actually come out of the engine. It just doesn't come out of a airfoil shape. It's actually pipes coming up. And it's put on the model, and then the smoke is pushed through these pipes and ejected out the sides and tested under various wind conditions. And there's little intakes on the hull of the ship that can measure any smoke that is taken in. So the competition was to put my funnel on. Then they did the test in all various wind conditions, following head, side, etc. And of course, my funnel won hands down.
Yep.
And so that was the end of the argument, and that's how it went. And so that carried through. And later on, maybe, 20 years later, I had to redesign the funnel in a shorter version to fit on one of the newer Carnival ships that had an extra deck. And so the funnel had to be a bit shorter to allow it to go under certain bridges and certain ports. So I had to redesign it, and I did redesign it. And this time the laboratory was in Vienna, and we went there and they did the very similar test, only there was no competition. And after the test under various wide conditions, the owner of the lab, the engineer, came to me and he said, I want you to know that this was the best funnel we have ever tested in this lab. And the second best was my previous funnel that was a little bit higher.
Oh, my gosh.
Gratifying.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, man.